Hey everyone, I hope you're well playing on and making the games that you all love. Thank you very much for joining me, your host today, Max Pears, but not just me. We have someone who has the most chocolatey eyes you've ever seen and curls to match the waves on his luscious locks. We have Mike Hudson, the CEO and co-founder of GameBake. My friend, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for the very descriptive and kind words. I very much appreciate it.
What can I say? You know, they may not be able to see your eyes, but they now know what color they are, so we can just help put the listener right there as if they were next to us, mate. That's the aim. With COVID separating us, this is connecting us here, man. So thank you very much for joining the show. How are you doing, mate?
Really good. Yeah, really well. I mean, yeah, things are very busy, I guess, from a business perspective, but it's nice now that I guess the world, in some way anyway, is somewhat returning to, normality, whatever normal was anyway. But yeah, no, it's nice to, as I said, I think enjoy the sun that's out at the moment as well before it all goes completely south and it's just wind, rain and cold all the time. So yeah, it's all good. Life's good at the moment.
Brilliant, mate. And yeah, in case you haven't realised, another Englishman joined us here today, so the weather is always grey for us, but that's why we got to, laugh it up while we can. But now, a quick word from today's sponsors. Today's sponsor is Mudstack. It is the only asset management and collaboration platform custom built for game studios and digital artists. Mudstack is built to solve problems. The key three solutions is finding assets. We all know when you have such complex naming conventions or that you don't have a tag system, it can be really hard to find that. So instead of that, what Mudstack does, it creates a system that works for you rather than you being forced to work with these parameters, giving you such things as tags and filters search in order to help you organize your asset files. Artists don't use version control, whether that be perf or subversion. Version control, as many of us know, can be quite a daunting tech to use, or can also be something that we struggle to get to use. But not with Mudstack now. Step away from that complexity of source control and get version control that is built for artists first. The reviewing process. We all know that it takes time to bring up the assets you need in order to quickly get it reviewed before it's being sent back to the drawing board. But with Mudstack, what you can do is have your art, your assets reviewed at any time, right there in the browser. No more searching, downloading, or rushing to open these files right before the meeting. They can be reviewed at any time by anyone. So if you're looking to clean up your files and make your asset browser as smooth as possible, go no further than to look at Mudstack. All of the links will be in the description down below. So for those who may not know about you, mate, do you mind giving an introduction to you and a bit about yourself, mate?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I've been in the games industry for well over 15 years now. And I started out, I think like many people did, to be fair, which is back in the heydays of Flash and browser gaming and, self-taught myself back then. I was still at school, so it's a good while ago now. But yeah, self-taught myself, AS2, AS3, which were the languages of Flash back in the day, and did the design aspects as well, and animation. I guess Flash kind of had it in that package. Everything could be somewhat done within one area, which was quite nice for me to learn everything. But yeah, I kind of moved from that, moved towards mobile when iPhone was, to be fair, just launched, and the App Store was still to be a proper thing. But moved into mobile in the early days, moved towards HTML5 when, that tech came about as well, and was one of the first, I guess, early adopters and first movers of moving browser games away from Flash and into HTML5. So yeah, had, I guess, a good start with sort of browser gaming and casual games back then, moved into mobile and, was developing hyper casual games with my co-founders under the studio we started back then. before hyper casual was a term, to be fair. So just back
Yeah.
then, but back then they was just called arcade games, to be fair, and fun little time wasters. But yeah, working with them types of games, moving into more free to play mid-core stuff, and eventually kind of coming full circle back to web gaming, HTML5, and hyper casual stuff as well. So yeah, kind of had, I guess, my fingers in many parts of the industry over the years, but it's all been really obviously good to work in all them different areas, because it's kind of led to what we're doing today with GameBake, and I guess what I'm focused on and what I'm pushing as well.
Yeah, man. It sounds like, you've had a range of experiences. And as you said, like tech has evolved throughout your time and through everyone's time, right? And it's one of those things about like adapting and learning. So do you want to tell us, okay, what is GameBake? Who are you? And kind of give us an information on that, mate.
Yeah, of course. I mean, at its simplest form, I mean, GameBake is basically a deployment and distribution technology and platform. So we're completely SDK-less, so there's nothing to integrate with GameBake. You literally upload your APK, upload your game, basically. And from there, you can select what platforms you want to go to. Outside of Google Play and iOS, the core stores, that are in the market at the moment. And yeah, I guess let our servers and our tech kind of take care of the rest. And, the idea of that really is to let the developers, let the studios and, the designers and so on do what they do best, which is, focusing on the games, creating quality content for millions of people to enjoy around the world. And we just want to be a much simpler way and much more effective way of deploying, not just to the core stores, but deploying into many different, alternative Android stores, web platforms, social platforms that are out there, because, there's huge opportunities outside of just iOS and Google Play. And, people should be thinking about it. They should be talking about it. And of course, taking advantage of it as well. And that's kind of, I guess, what GameBake is and what our mission is and what we're trying to achieve.
That sounds awesome, man. I think you're so right. There is so many other markets and ways to release the game. So it's great to hear that. How did you guys, I guess, or what inspired you all to come up with GameBake? What was the inspiration for that, champ?
I guess it was really just a need from ourselves, really. Internally, I think a lot of the best ideas over, many years, going back a long time as well, have usually been bred out of, the people who created it wanting it pretty much. It's the same with, with Apple and, interviews, I've been watching with Bill Gates. And as he said, a lot of the stuff, that in the early days, Microsoft were making and what, Bill Gates was making, for example, was stuff he wanted and stuff he wanted to use. And it's just about turning that into a commercial opportunity and a business opportunity from there. But yeah, it's really been bred out of many years of us developing for, as I said, many different platforms, from browser, to mobile app stores, many different types of games as well. And that sort of experience has really helped us to, I guess, hone in on what we see the market needs. And where we, I guess, find the issues from the game development side of things, that people really kind of run into, which, when deciding what stores they want to go to, what platforms, what markets, and then not just deciding where you want to go, but then how to get there from either a technological aspect or, even down to sort of the business development side of things as well. So it's something that we've been doing for, many, many years as a team, really. And we've been building this tech internally. And it's now when we decided, we need to kind of knuckle down and, I guess, focus on one thing, which was, a couple of years ago, we had to, I guess, make that decision. This is kind of what stood out to us more than anything. And I guess, we haven't looked back since then, really. We kind of pushed forwards with it.
Oh, that's great to hear. And I guess while developing the tech, you know, it must have changed and adapted so much. What's it been like as a team to, take on something that, as you said, I mean, we even said before we recorded this, like, this is a very much a different aspect of games that some people don't even think about, or, it is either just a certain role within a game studio itself. So what it's been like to try and develop all of that alongside everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long old slog, to be fair. It's been it's been good. There's no complaints, on that side of things. But I mean, we're obviously, I'm on podcast now with yourself, and speaking elsewhere as well. Trying to, I guess, really kickstart the conversation around distribution and so on. because it's one that needs to be had and is becoming more and more, I think, prevalent in sort of the market in general. But there's a lot that we're still learning on a daily basis, and that's kind of what the last 2 years, to be fair, has been just a journey from taking the knowledge we had already, and really kind of developing upon that. And we've moved over the last couple of years from focusing on HTML5 and web and social platforms, to kind of moving back into the Android space. And now we're a lot more focused on the Android stores, working very closely with Huawei, for example, and as well as many other partners such as Xiaomi, Samsung, etc. But we still obviously have that whole encompassing of all platforms is still part of, I guess, our DNA and what we're doing. And although we've been over the last year and a half a little bit sort of jumpy on where we've directed the technology, to try and follow the market, because it's such an early days part of the market, I think, where distribution, it's always been a bit of the conversation, but it's never really been looking much further outside than the core stores on mobile. And if you are looking outside of that, it's more so, looking towards, say, PC, for example, and looking on Steam and even consoles, for example, with certain games and IP from mobile. It hasn't really been around how can we get onto these alternative app stores like Huawei and Samsung. How can we take advantage of browser? And that's really, what we've been trying to build with our tech, to not really just enable the deployment to these platforms, but enable the services that come with that. So, how to monetize, how to run user acquisition, everything that you need to create a successful game, really, and bringing that into one package where, you can really easily and effectively get to these platforms and build a distribution strategy that, works for you, works for the game, and allows you to take advantage of, the opportunities that are out there to, the best that you possibly can.
No, man, that's really great stuff. And you raised a couple of interesting points. I just want to ask you further on.
Yeah, go for it.
Because you said such a great point there of distribution isn't always spoken about, and it sure is. I mean, I don't know about you, mate, but it sure as heck isn't spoken enough about in classes when people are learning, say, degrees about games and elements like that, right? And I guess one of my questions is why do you think we're not talking about it enough, and what do you think is currently broken? Because you said that people focused on the main things, but as you've said throughout this talk we've had so far, mate, is there's so many alternatives that people aren't either aware of or not thinking about as they're making.
I think it kind of somewhat comes down to what you're used to, in a sense. I mean, the mobile industry itself over the last decade, really, or more, is it's been built around iOS and Google Play. And that's all everyone is kind of known. There's been alternative Android stores, for example, for a long time, years, but they just haven't really been able to, I guess, build their presence to actually compete with Google Play and the Apple App Store. And that's why the focus has always really been there, in my opinion. Anyway, people, they want to work with what they're used to. They don't want to have difficulty in, I guess, aspects that a lot of people don't really want to work on. For example, when you're monetizing your games, a lot of people, as you said, you mentioned obviously in classes and stuff, they want to be working on the game development. That's where the fun is, and that's what they're passionate about and really enjoy. And kudos to that. That's what they should be pushing with. They should be focusing on creating top quality games that millions can enjoy it. But it's all good making a game, but there has to be a commercial and a business, I guess, behind it, in a sense. And there's a lot of stuff that comes with that. You need to think about your partnerships, not just with platforms, but in how you monetize the game. What ad networks and stuff do you work with? How do you attribute your partners? And that kind of plays into the fact why publishers exist, I guess, to try and take away a little bit of that work and allowing developers to focus on the game design itself. But even then, it should be part of something that you're thinking about when you start making your game. And it should be something, at the very least, you understand, because you don't want to be going into a publishing deal, for example, when you've made your quality game that could be that next big hit, not understanding how the market properly works, not understanding what's out there in the market, because at the end of the day, it's business, and business is dog eat dog. It's just how it is and how the world works. And if a publisher can see the opportunity in your game, and they can see that you are not, I guess, quite as business savvy as obviously they are, then they're going to do their best to make sure that they're getting the biggest benefit out of it they can. And if you do understand the market, and you understand that there is more opportunities outside of just iOS and Google Play, then you can really have and make a good deal with these publishers to benefit yourself and benefit the goals that you have over the long term as well.
Yeah, mate. No, some great points there. I think it is. I just completely echo what you're saying, mate, about like understanding the market, understanding, especially if you are working with publishers, what is it that they want and how to best communicate with them as well.
At Level Design Lobby, we believe everybody has a story to tell. Hobbyist or student, freelancer or veteran, we made it our mission to unite those who share our passion for creating and developing great games. Thanks to our generous Patreon backers, we've been able to do just that. So if you've already pledged your support, thank you. If not, you too can ensure the future of Level Design Lobby, helping us to create even more exciting content, collaborations, interviews, and much more. With awesome perks and rewards, whether you're a seasoned professional or just getting started, you're sure to find something for you. Want to share tips, tricks, and advice with passionate, like-minded developers? Our awesome community Discord has you covered. Fancy practicing your level design, creating strong portfolio content, and having fun? Then try our level design weekends. Or perhaps you want to individually discuss your work, hone your skills, or level up your career? Then consider our one-on-one mentorships. If you share our vision, then go to patreon.com/Level Design Lobby for more information and to pledge your support. Thank you.
I guess, do you have any advice in kind of like launching a game, with using GameBake? How do you guys work with, people who want to work with you? How does this all come together, champ?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely frank and honest, I mean, right now we're very much focused on working on more established games and IP that are out there. Just coming back to what I just said, for us, it just makes more sense commercially, from a business standpoint, to be hitting, I guess, the games that these platforms want and the content that they want, and the ones that, are already commercially successful on iOS and Google Play as well. And, what we really see has a really great opportunity. But, over the longer term, we do want to open up the platform a lot more and start bringing it to, developers that are just starting out potentially as well, and have these game ideas and have really good games they've developed, but are looking for a new way to enter into the market. And, once we get to that point, I would, definitely suggest using us and using GameBake to be able to take advantage of less competitive areas of the industry and the market that are out there, and be able to test your games on platforms where, the users you're getting, for example, on App Gallery are the same users in Europe that you would be getting on Google Play, but there's a lot less competition. So you're not fighting with, the big boys in the industry for that attention and for them users, which is going to allow you just to really sort of focus in and hone in on, the core parts of your game that you can see are working, and start fixing and just improving really on them elements that you can see aren't working so much with the users, and finding out why. And it's going to allow you to focus, less on how we're going to acquire users in a sense, and, how are we going to get users to our game just so we can test it. And instead, get some really sort of, I guess, an easy user base. Easy is not the right word. Nothing's ever really easy. But, get an easier user base to your game, and a significant one as well. And that's going to allow you to just perfect the game before you do go to the core stores, which, well, in all fairness, do hold still, the majority of the revenue opportunity. So, yeah, I think it's a bit of a different approach, but I think it's one that if you think about it, it's going to help, I think, smaller studios, indie studios and devs to claw back, I think, a little bit more of the ownership of their game, because they're, potentially is going to be a little bit less reliance on having to go to a publisher. And that's not saying publishers are bad in any sense. They're definitely not. And, they have their place 100%. But it gives you another option basically to get into the market. And I think that's, what's good really. Having options is what is a good thing to have. And I think you're seeing that in the news lately as well, with Apple, with Google, antitrust lawsuits, Apple versus Epic and so on, that I'm pretty sure everyone has obviously been reading about. And I think that's really what it boils down to, is the lack of options with some of these stores and platforms. And that's what people want. They want to be able to choose what's best for them, best for their business, and best for their game.
No, mate, completely agree. And that's also just how we as an industry progress, right? Is by having options, by being able to test things out, right? So I completely agree with you. I want to ask you this question, mate, then. Do you think that distribution affects how a game should be thinking about launching, or like how they should like adapt it when they're going to certain stores? Anything like that, you think, Champ?
Definitely. I mean, I would say it depends what platforms you're looking to distribute to. I mean, like for us, we kind of have, I guess, 4 pillars, and that's app stores, web, social platforms, and then apps as well. Stuff like streaming platforms and stuff. And each of them has their own, I guess, individual upsides, downsides. They have their own specific features that really benefit them, that type of platform. So when you, I guess, are starting to think about your distribution, and that's why I mentioned it's good to just understand the market and think about this from day one, really, because if you're developing a game that you want to get to as many people as possible, then you should have, I guess, in the back of your mind, at least some idea of how you can adapt, the design of the game to fit into local markets. So, like, for example, opening up China, there's a lot of localization, and that's not just text within the game, but actual, localization of assets and, the actual design of the game itself to be able to even, to be fair, get into that market, let alone succeed, within it. But also, thinking about potentially once your game is, successful on iOS and Google Play, for example, there could be a great opportunity for your game on social platforms such as, Facebook Instant or Snap or WeChat. But you need to be able to then be in a position where you can adapt the game. And that doesn't mean changing the core elements of the gameplay. You still want the game to be what it is across all stores. It should still have that core to it. But for example, Facebook, you want to be able to then leverage the social aspects on that platform and take advantage of the tournament features and the timeline features that they have. And, that's going to require some thought processes to be, and some decisions to be made within the design of the game itself. But having that from day one, it doesn't mean that you have to focus, fully on, 2 years from now, we might be on Facebook Instant, for example. Don't get that deep into it, but just have in the back of your mind, that them options and of these platforms, they are out there, and they're definitely worth considering. And, you want to be in a position that if you do get, a year down the line, you might have found a publisher and had a great success on iOS and Google Play. You want to be in the position where, you've made a deal with them that says that you can and you have the rights to take your game, for example, to alternative stores, to social platforms and to web. And then when you find that you do want to do that and take advantage of that opportunity, you want to be able to, work as a team to make them small changes to really be effective within these new markets and new platforms that you deploy onto.
Yeah, mate. No, exactly. And I think that's going to be, it's such an interesting one just because, again, like you think about, when you say about like, speaking to the publisher to make sure that, you have the opportunity to go to other stores. Obviously that's presented in a ton of contracts to read. But it is that, as you said, it is that element of that, like, understanding that there is different, like you said, stores, but also each store offers something different that can impact some sort of like thought process design of the game. We talked about social kind of interactions if you went over to Facebook and elements of that. And it's something that I hadn't thought about, but something that, again, you're so right to bring up then. I'm curious then, mate, where do you see the industry move in the next few years with everything changing? We said new markets, people trying to, we see Epic competing, not having to go with Apple, but also having their own game store trying to take on Steam as well. Where do you think things are going to be going in the next few years, mate?
Yeah, I mean, myself, I see it becoming more fragmented. I mean, I see it kind of echoing more like Eastern markets, so looking, towards SEA and APAC regions within China, which, are highly fragmented markets when it comes to app stores and how people download and play their games. And you can already see that kind of happening throughout Europe and, eventually making its way, I think, to sort of North America and stuff as well. The reason I say that is, Huawei, for example, with App Gallery, the only way you're going to reach their users is by deploying to App Gallery. There's no other way. There is no Google Play on them devices. So if you want to take advantage of, the 70 plus million users in Europe that are on Huawei devices, then you need to work with Huawei to do that. And what that's done is, I think, proven that other device manufacturers and app stores and platforms out there can compete against Google Play and iOS now. And it's just about bringing the content to the store. And I can see, Samsung, for example, their device sales are, they've plateaued. There's only so many devices that, you can sell within a market, and there's more people, the more manufacturers today than ever developing devices as well. So that's becoming a more and more competitive space, and, people are keeping their devices longer. And, Apple saw this, and that's why they switched really, their focus to not just creating, quality devices, of course, but, their changes now are very incremental on a hardware level. Most of the big sort of changes they make and the big announcements, it's on a software level, it's on a services level, be that the App Store, be it Apple Arcade, Apple Music. They've moved their focus and their business to focusing on the services. And at the moment, Samsung, there's only so many devices they can sell, and where is their growth going to be coming from the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years? It's going to be coming from the services side, and at the moment they hand that to Google with Google Play. So really and truly, it's just from a business perspective, it's going to make sense for them to move towards a more services orientated model, and that needs to come from, it has to have an anchor point, and that anchor point is going to be the App Store and owning that part of it. And they already have everything in place, so it makes sense for them to start to, I guess, transition things away from Google Play on their devices, and start to push people into Galaxy Store, onto Samsung Pay, and once they've got people using it and they've got people looking and working in that direction, and the content creators start supporting it as well, which is another big part. But once they've got that sort of inflection point, it's only really a matter of time until they, remove Google Play. And that's just Samsung, not even thinking about, Oppo, Xiaomi, and all of these other platforms that are out there as well. So, yeah, I think it's a matter of time. And just looking from a business perspective, it's something that's already happened anyway with the core stores. And it's going to happen elsewhere, especially now somebody like Huawei has kind of proven the model works and it can be done. And I think you see that with Google themselves, starting to really pick up on the Pixel devices, on the Chromebooks, starting to push the hardware side of it a lot more these days. And they know that because Samsung and Xiaomi and anyone else can cut off Google Play from their devices when they like, really. And they know that. So they've got to have a backup, and they've got to start owning some parts of the industry themselves to be able to compete as they move forwards.
That's a really good point, mate. Yeah, it's a lot to think about for sure.
It's a very big topic, and there's so many sort of like subtopics under, distribution to talk about as well. Be that from the platform side, a game design side, even, looking into sort of the business side of things and everything as well. And, that can be broken down a billion times from there as well. So it's a big discussion point, but I think at the moment, it's only recently really that people have started to pick up on it. And that's, because of the Epic versus Apple and, because of the antitrust lawsuits and stuff. It's only now that people are starting to think about it, and it's starting to become a topic and a discussion piece. And, I guess from a game-based perspective and from my perspective, I want to make sure that, we're the ones trying to drive that conversation, not just to be, from a business perspective, known as a brand, but, also to help the industry move along and, start to open up the industry and more doors for, developers now that already exist, but, for the developers and the studios and the publishers that are going to come in the next, 2, 3, 5 years plus.
Mm. No, mate, that's really smart. And now that I've already asked you to predict the future of the industry, but what do you think is next for you guys over at GameBake? What do you think the future holds for all of you?
Well, hopefully good things. Fingers crossed. If
Yeah, this is me trying to voodoo curse you, mate.
yeah, jinxed everything now. It's all going to go downhill. No, yeah, of course. I mean, hopefully everything goes the right direction. And, so far, so good. And, for us, we want to start, as I said, I guess you can use the word democratizing the industry. But, we just want it to be as open as possible. And, whether
Yeah.
so whether developers and that choose to work with us or whether they want to go to platforms individually on their own, I mean, that's entirely up to you. And I'm not going to force anybody's hand, but we just want to make sure that our technology is in a position and in a place where anyone can use it, and it's just helping the industry as a whole deploy into new markets, onto new platforms in just a much more simple way, really. I mean, I liken it sometimes to ad mediation. And, at the very beginning, there was all of the ad networks, and people were basically building their own, internal mediation tools to be able to bring all of these ad networks together. And, eventually that developed out into, the big mediation platforms you see today with IronSource, with Max, Appadil, and so on. And they built massive businesses on the fact that they've simplified how to mediate ad networks and made it much more cost effective to do, and much more of a commercial opportunity to do that as well. And that's what we want to replicate, but with distribution. Basically, we want to make it accessible to everybody, make it much more simple and cost effective, and from a technology standpoint, much more effective in that standpoint as well, for people to access, so they can then decide what platforms work for them and what distribution strategy works for them in their game. So yeah, I'm not going to tell anyone what to do or how to do it, but hopefully we can be part of that guiding force that allows people to be able to access it and be able to do it when and where they please.
No, mate, that's great. And just want to say thank you very much for coming on the show and just talking about this, man. Like, it's been just for me alone fascinating to hear about this. As we said, it's not always spoken about on to many different people. So just thank you again, champ. Honestly, absolute pleasure and blessed to have you talking about this, mate.
No, brilliant. Thanks for the invite. I really appreciate it. And it's great to talk about it. As you said, it's it's not a topic that is mentioned tons these days, but hopefully it's going to be talked about more and more. And if we can do this now on this podcast and elsewhere as well to really help drive that conversation and get people thinking a little bit more about them opportunities that are out there, then mission accomplished. From my standpoint, everything's going to be good and rosy from there. So yeah, cheers for having us on. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem, champ. And if people want to reach out to you or find out more information, how can they do so, mate?
Yeah, I mean, I think as you said, there'll probably be some links and stuff in the description to, follow me on LinkedIn. To be fair, it's probably the platform I'm most active on, but I'm trying my best with Twitter and so on as well in this, social day and age that we are in. But yeah, I'll throw yourself the links and, you can share them out as and how you please so people can follow and I guess see what I'm talking about and what opinions I have, whether you like them or not. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide. Yeah, if you want to ignore me after the first bit you see, you're more than welcome to. I'm not going to force anyone's hand to have to follow me.
No, that's awesome, man. But as I said, this will all be in the description below. So if you want to learn more, honestly, like we said, Mike's a great resource for this and what GameBake are doing and what you're all doing, mate, is as you said, it's pushing the conversation, but as well as being at the forefront for what we talked about, possible changes that are coming, mate. So again, thank you. And I said, description all down below for everyone. If you want to reach out to me, you can do so on Twitter. I'm at Max Bears. If you want to email into the show for any questions, you can do so over leveldesignlobby@gmail.com. And if you want to support the show, please head over to patreon.com/leveldesignlobby. Thank you all very much, and we'll catch you all next time.